Listen to people who have gone through it. Have a
Sure.
look at their hairlines. Like Freddie said at the beginning, you
Yes.
don't want people to know that you've had a hair transplant. Of course, it's never going to be as natural as when you were 16 years old. At the very least, most people shouldn't be able to tell that you've had anything done.
Yeah. Or it can come pretty close.
Hi everyone, today I'm interviewing a really special guest, Freddie Pinto. He's one of the top hair loss influencers in the world, and he himself has undergone 2 hair transplantation surgeries in Colombia. Today we're going to discuss a whole lot of things regarding traveling abroad for hair transplantation, as well as his hair loss routine. I found Freddie a while back on TikTok and found his content to be really honest, which is rare to find in this industry. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Mr. Freddie Pinto.
Honestly, sometimes I'm shocked that I even share so much about my biggest insecurity. But I've been through it. Starting back in 2021, I got my first hair transplant. Kind of just started posting for fun online, but it turned into something. So now we just hit 2025. It's been 4 years of me posting all this content about my hair loss, my hair restoration journey, and the hair transplants I've been through. So it's been a whirlwind for sure, but I'm really thankful that I started posting about
I'm thankful that you're doing it because, a lot of patients have a lot to learn from you. And I actually get a lot of patients who come to me and say, I've been watching you guys, I've been watching Freddie, and I'm like, oh, I know Freddie. I know he has valuable things to
it.
add
Yeah.
instead of, some people who don't really.
For sure. And I feel like we also kind of stick out in this community too, because likewise, I've heard a lot of great things about you guys from people, total strangers. But I feel like our content kind of resonates with people because it's a little bit more, less salesy, more informative, but also to its core, it's just honest. Like we're just people, whether I'm a patient or you're a doctor, we're just sharing the information that we have.
I will
And
say you do know more than the average patient, like you know what to look for in a good hair transplant, and these are important things, right? So
yeah.
every patient needs to be aware of these things before they make this decision that could honestly change their life.
For sure. Yeah. And a lot of patients go into these things blindly too. I mean, I was also in that same spot a few years ago when I was looking to get my first one done. I didn't know where to start. Like, I didn't even know what I was supposed to look for. I just kind of went with what everyone else was going towards. But I decided at one point, no, like, I need to really look through who's doing it, what's their expertise, how long they've been doing it. Like, this is going to be something I'm living with for the rest of my life. So it's got to look good. Like, it's got to look like me.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you. Like, what made you decide, okay, I need to get this done? How did you feel about your hair before
Oh,
you actually
goodness.
went for?
You know what? When I started losing my hair, I was young. I was 23 years old. I feel like at that point in my life, it was like a really big moment for me. I was just graduating college. I just got my first full-time job. Like there was a lot of good things happening to me for that point in time. But my hair started to fall out. Like I was living my best life and I was going bald. And it was happening so quickly that I couldn't adjust to it like at the rate that I was losing it. So I was at a loss for words. Like every time I looked in that mirror, I didn't see myself. And then I realized how much I identified with my hair. Like it was such a big part of who I was. And so I remember I saw one TikTok of this guy, like a before and after, completely different person. And I thought to myself, hold on, if I look like his before, then I can look like his after. Like it's possible. It's totally possible. And so I went for it. I started doing the research online, which was, I went into it blindly, but I ended up feeling very confident in my decision after doing a lot of research and finding out that a doctor was going to do it, that all of the before and afters I've looked at from all these people all looked incredibly natural to the point where I couldn't even tell they got it done. And then, I mean, price is also a big thing too. A lot of people leave the US just because it's so expensive here, and the price was pretty comparable at the time too. Like there wasn't really much of a difference. Where I ended up going, which was Colombia, was just a little closer than me going to most places I was looking at.
Okay. That's a huge thing for a lot of patients, right? Because a lot of patients, especially in the US and Canada and North America, it is very, very expensive. And so many of them decide to travel. But like you said, how do you actually find a clinic? Because there's thousands, if not tens of thousands of
So
clinics.
many.
How do you actually find a clinic that you're comfortable with? And I saw you mentioned doctors are doing it. You look at their hairlines, right? Make sure that they look natural. What
Yeah.
else were you looking for? Did you speak to anyone that made you feel more comfortable? A lot of these clinics are very salesy, right? So they're just trying
Right.
to sell you this transplant. You might be in the sort of rotating door of patients that come in and out.
Right.
So how did you find a clinic that made you feel comfortable to go to?
How did I find a clinic? You know what? I remember the best thing I did for myself was I hopped on Facebook and I joined a Facebook group that it was just all guys dealing with hair loss, asking questions on what they can do, the treatments they're going through, the hair transplants they're looking into. And that's where I actually found a lot of the clinics that I was looking into. I was on this Facebook group just scrolling. I'm like, okay, like these guys, like they're going from Mr. Clean to Fabio. And I'm like, this is insane to me. Like, I have to get a hair transplant. Um, but there was one post I remember from this guy. His before and after was so natural that I couldn't even tell that he got anything done. So I looked a little bit more into that clinic. I found other people posting their before and afters that also went there, and it was the same thing. So that was the first thing that really attracted me to the clinic that I'm going with was the fact that it looked so natural to the point where if you were to look at me, you wouldn't know. I mean, and I think I got exactly that. Like I felt very confident in my decision. Even going into that part of like the salesy stuff, when I reached out, it didn't feel like that. It felt like a very comfortable conversation where I could ask all my questions and nothing was being sold to me or no upgrades were being pushed on me to make my experience even more glamorous. Like I just wanted a hair transplant. I just wanted to
Really?
know that my hotel was going to be at least incorporated into the package, that I wouldn't have to deal with too much of how I was going to get around, like was there going to be an issue if I didn't speak the language? But all of those were covered. They spoke English. They covered my hotel within their package. And then, I mean, the hair transplant quality was just, it surpassed anything that I was looking into at that time.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear. And so you started balding at quite a young age. Is there anything that they sort of told you, like, listen, you need to start taking either
Yeah.
medications to stabilize your hair loss and potentially get some regrowth, or were they just like, yeah, come in, get the surgery, don't worry about medication?
Yeah. So, you know what? They told me, they asked me, are you on finasteride? Are you using minoxidil? And I think I reached out to them maybe 3 months before I got the procedure done. So this was a little bit in advance. And I said, yeah, like I've been doing it. Honestly, at that point, it was like a week. Like I wasn't seeing any any difference from either one of them. But they were very happy to hear that I was doing something at least to maintain my hair. And by the time I was getting my hair transplant, that's when I should have seen the effects of finasteride and minoxidil. And they were right. All the information they gave me was spot on. There was no, don't take that because you won't need it. Just use your hair, just get your hair transplant. Your baldness will be good. Like that. Now that I know what I know, I'm like,
Yeah,
hold on. You guys are
yeah,
crooks. There's no way that that's even ethical to tell a patient, in my opinion, which some patients can't do it for whatever side effects they may be experiencing, which I understand. But the message I'm interpreting is relying on this hair transplant, your native hair may continue to fall out because you're not doing anything. So then what's your option? You get another hair transplant, you come to us.
yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, I find that most patients have their sweet spot with medication, whether it be topical or lower dose of oral. Most patients will have their sweet spot where they don't experience side effects, but they still get the benefits of the medication. So not everyone's the same. Obviously, a lot of doctors just put them on the 1 milligram daily, but for a lot of patients, that's too much. So you got to tailor the dose, and I'm glad to hear that your clinic actually went through that with you before you went to them, because that is first step, right? Like, put the patient on a stabilizing therapy, and obviously, not everyone is going to have a crazy response to the treatment. Many patients will need a hair transplant, but if they're
Yeah,
very young, you have to put them on this medication first,
for
because
sure.
otherwise, they're going to be left with an island of hair and they're going to hate
Exactly.
their hair transplant in like 5 years' time. And I've seen this many, many times.
All right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
think in those instances too, it's sometimes people in those instances sometimes say, "Oh, my hair transplant failed." And then the more I learn about their situation, they say, "No, I didn't take finasteride or I didn't use minoxidil because I didn't want to." Not even because they couldn't, like they just flat out didn't want to. And I think to myself, I don't think the hair transplant failed. Like you you just failed to take care of your hair loss, and now the hair transplant, I mean, it's permanent, so it's just you're gonna have a headband of hair, and then that's it.
I don't blame patients for that because I feel like the doctor should explain to them the risks behind that, right? So like they should go into a hair transplant knowing 100% that if they're not taking this medication, the chances that they will need a second, third, even fourth transplant is very, very high. And actually getting into that, you went for your second one quite recently.
Yes, I did. Oh, yeah, I got mine done back in April, so it's been 9 months.
Amazing. And I mean, your hair looks great. So, what was the difference between, the first transplant and the second transplant? I know you went to the same place, so,
Yes.
the technical aspects were pretty much all the same, but what was your difference in experience?
Yeah, so I think going into the first one, I was going through it. Like it was a nerve-wracking experience. It's one thing to watch the videos online and to do research and figure out this is what a hair transplant is. And they gave me all the details, so I knew what I was getting myself into. But going into it to actually experience it, I was beyond nervous the first time, just because I've never done anything cosmetic where I would technically be going under the knife, right? So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in another country, I'm getting a hair transplant. I don't know what it's going to look like immediately. I just know I'm going to look very scabbed up and a little bloody after the procedure. So I was having all these thoughts. Thankfully, I just kind of mellowed out and trusted the process, and I think it was amazing. I was over the moon with the results. But the
I
second
agree. I mean,
reason,
I would surprise you went for a second one, but obviously, I mean, if you think you
yeah,
need it, then by all means.
yeah, I
Um,
mean, I was shocked too. But there was at one point where I'm like, you know what? There's a little room for improvement here, and that was what they told me too. Because before the hair transplant, my hair was so thin, but my crown was the thinnest part of my scalp. Like it was just almost like peach fuzz. And I used to have really thick hair, so for me to see my skin, see the actual scalp, that was a lot for me. I'm like, all right, like this is not okay. This is not me. Um, but after the first hair transplant, they just couldn't do enough work in one session for me to get the coverage I wanted. So I knew, okay, second hair transplant it is. It was just a matter of figuring out when.
And that's actually like a telltale sign of a good clinic, to be honest. Someone who doesn't want to just extract 5,000 follicles from your hair and then go in there and destroy your donor area and leave you with like patches in the donor area just to fill up a certain amount of hair. Most of the time, it's if you extract 5,000 in one session, you're not going to be able to go back and get more hairs in the future. Whereas if you extract less, you might be able to go back and get over that 5,000 mark. So, it's all credit to them that they first focus on the frontal section, right? And
Yeah,
then later on went back to do the crown, which can actually be like a black hole for hair loss. The crown can just eat up follicles. So
I've
we like
heard
to
that.
always do it later on.
Right. Yeah. No, that was my situation. I mean, I'm happy to hear that. In the moment, I didn't like the sound of I may need to come back for a second. And I'm like, damn it, I'm here. I flew all the way here. Why can't I just get everything? But
No,
I
good for them,
acknowledged,
really.
yeah, I acknowledged I'm not the pro here. That they're the pros, and at that point, I felt confident enough in what they had to tell me that I just let them take control, obviously, and they made the final decision. But it was up until maybe 2024. In 2024, I booked my second hair transplant for like April. So that was almost 9 months ago. And the focus on that one was just to work mainly on the crown because that was my biggest problem area. But going into it, I mean, the whole process was exactly the same, but I think it was more of this comfort that I had from the first time because I'm seeing all these people that they've seen my TikToks. So they're like, Freddie, like, I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa, this is weird. Like, I'm just Freddie. Um, but it was nice to see familiar faces and also that comfort too that they gave me. It was that hospitality. The second I walked in, they were happy to see me. They were very respectful. They sat me down, told me the whole process. But to add on to that, I actually had my partner, Zach. He also came with me to get a hair transplant at the same clinic, and they booked us on the same day. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like we're going to be in the same room. Who does that? Like I think this is amazing. But he was actually next door in another room getting it done. But it was also peace of mind that I had the second time around was my loved one is here. He's next door. He's getting it done.
I'm sure he felt way better about
Oh,
it doing it with
oh,
you.
I
And
don't
they're
think he
like,
would have
you're the
gotten it done.
celebrity there, right? Like everyone knows you.
It's the weirdest thing, but
How's his
he
hair
also
looking now, by the way?
his hair looks great. It's
Really, that's
phenomenal. Yeah.
awesome to hear.
They
Yeah.
they did the same thing to me that they did to him. So they focused mainly on his hairline and hit his crown, and then they said, "Let's wait a full year, and then we'll see. Maybe you need to come back." But we won't know till that year mark. So he's currently seeing the hair still grow in, but his
Yeah,
hairline
absolutely.
is amazing.
Can take up to a year to 16 months to see that result, right? So you got to be patient, unfortunately. A lot of patients are
Unfortunately.
not, but you have
Yeah.
to be patient. And you know,
Yeah.
another thing about that, honestly, like all credit to the clinic, because like I said, if you over harvest, so let's say these are your follicles, if you're taking too many too close to each other, you can actually damage the surrounding follicles. So even though you haven't extracted them, you can actually damage the follicles around them, which then, what was the point of getting all of those follicles extracted when now you can never have another hair transplant in the future? So
Exactly.
really, like when I hear about clinics that talk about 6,000, 5,000 follicles in one session, I just tell patients like run away from that because
Yeah.
you know they're not doing it properly. Like
Yeah.
anything, I mean, unless you have a massive donor area, anything over about 3,500 in one session is kind of frowned upon.
It's not worth compromising all that here, considering too it's a limited supply, which I feel like I've gotten the comment a lot. Some people don't realize once the hair is extracted from the donor area, it's not going to grow in the donor area anymore. That's why we're left with tiny little scars when you get the FUE procedure. Once that hair is gone, that hair is gone. So if you're using too much of it, or you're compromising the hair to the point where you're losing that donor, there may be nothing left when you have to go back if you want to get a second hair transplant or a third or fourth, whatever. It's not worth it to me.
Yeah. Also, I hear a lot of patients tell me like, yeah, I don't care if you extract all the hairs in my donor area because like I go for like the faded look anyway.
Yeah.
And I tell them like, it's gonna look terrible. You're gonna have like a patchy donor area.
Yeah.
You're gonna look unhealthy, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the end up look if you get over harvested.
Yeah. And you know what? I've gotten like a skin fade before that went up just a little too high. And I saw the scars. I can live with it. But at one point it becomes more obvious because I mean that kind of haircut is so close to the skin that it doesn't look that great. It doesn't look bad when I cover it up nicely. But it's not worth giving yourself bald spots in other areas. It should look natural all around.
So something you could do to hide those little dots is called SMP. So you can actually opt for a little micropigmentation around those dots. It actually gives a really nice appearance of a hair being there.
Yeah.
And it kind of does give that illusion that you haven't had a procedure before.
Yeah, you know what? I actually have a friend who I've known him as bald. He's always been bald, and the bald look always looked great on him. But I saw him a few months ago, and he had like a hairline, but he wasn't a hair transplant. And I looked closely. I'm like, oh my God, he got SMP done. But it looks phenomenal. Like the kind of
Really.
artistry and the kind of technique that goes into it just makes it look like you have a full head of hair that you chose just to
You
shape
really
down
need
to
to
the skin.
choose your artist though, because I've seen some
Yes,
terrible hairlines
yes.
from SMP. So, but yeah, everyone out there, if you're gonna do SMP, especially for the hairline, be very, very careful.
Do your research. With everything, do your research.
I like SMP for filling areas, right? So let's
Hmm.
say your crown is weak and you don't have enough donor area to fill it, then adding some SMP to that to give your scalp that pigmentation creates the illusion of density. So that's what I like SMP for. For hairlines, I'm on the fence. You
Hmm.
really need a good artist.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I think it is an art for sure. I've looked into it myself. I don't know if it's that serious for me at this point in time to get that done. I'm
I don't
assuming
think
they
so, to
would
be
need
honest.
to buzz my hair too. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that again. But maybe in the future, maybe not. We'll
It
see.
suits you, Freddie.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all well worth it.
So, what are you currently doing for your hair loss treatment? Because I know you were using the Zion topical, which I often recommend to my patients, and I love their product because I find that patients have, even if they have a side effect on normal topicals, they won't have a side effect on the Zion topical because of their special base. So I know you stopped using it because you went for the transplant, but what are you currently doing for your hair loss routine?
Currently. So yes, you're correct. I transitioned away from the topical finasteride just because I knew I wasn't going to be able to apply it when I got the hair transplant. So I was kind of bummed about that, but I went back to oral finasteride because I was one of the one of the people that this had no issues on oral either. So currently taking 1 milligram of oral finasteride every day, and then I pair that up with minoxidil morning and night.
Is that
Sometimes
topical
just
minoxidil? Yeah.
topical minoxidil. Yep, the
Okay.
foam version though,
Yeah.
in the strongest like 5%, because I know they sell it a little. It's a little weaker for women, but the men's one 5%. From there, also I use other Zion products too. I use their shampoo, which is it's formulated with natural ingredients to help block DHT. So, anything that I can help block that DHT within reason, I'm open to. And then I also use one of their serums too, just to help promote hair growth and block that DHT.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't tried the other products, but I know the company themselves, and all credit to them. Really, they seem to care about their patients, so they do their research. A lot of companies out there are just trying to make money. I mean, everyone is, but at the end of the day, you want to see the studies behind all of these things,
For
right?
sure.
So yeah, they've actually compared other topicals to their topical, and the difference is night and day, really. So that's the only reason I rep them, right? Whether we were affiliated with them or not, I would still tell my patients to go for it because I want the best for my patients.
Yeah, for sure. I feel confident in speaking about them. And I always say like I can't sell anything that I have never used or I can't support, but their product is amazing. Like I've been paired up with them for about 2 years now and I still have my hair. So that's a big sign that
Yeah,
their products do work.
absolutely. So is there any product you would say like stay away from it? I don't recommend it. You've tried it, you didn't like it.
Any product. Biotin, a lot of people go to. That was actually like one of the first things I did ever. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm losing my hair. Let me take biotin because I think my mom would take biotin for her hair. And she was convinced it worked. But later I learned that biotin really serves no purpose unless you're deficient in biotin. And I've always kind of been very well rounded in my nutrients and how I supplement my body. So I thought to myself, okay, this is actually a waste of money. That year of using biotin actually did nothing for me.
It's very rare to actually have a biotin deficiency unless you're eating terribly.
Yeah.
So
And I think,
very unlikely that
yeah,
that biotin deficiency is causing your hair loss.
I have my moments too where I'm like, okay, I had a horrible day of eating, but not to the point where I think biotin supplements would ever benefit me. So that was a big thing. And also, there was something else that I used. It was like an oral medication.
Flavia.
Oh my goodness. That
Well, maybe we should talk about Flavia. Uh,
Flava,
I don't even know, but
I
this
can't remember the
company
term.
I saw online, and Freddie's voice was repping this company that I knew for a fact he wasn't affiliated with. So maybe you can tell us about it, because I reported it straight away. I was like, I know Freddie's not like
Yeah.
reporting this bullshit company.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you can acknowledge it. Right. Freddie's an honest guy. There's
Yeah,
no way Freddie's talking about this crazy serum. It's nuts. A few months ago, I received this DM from a random follower, and it was an ad for Flavia. It was an ad of me, one of my TikTok videos, and I'm like, okay, hold on. This is this. I'm like, first off, I thought, okay, I made it because people are stealing my videos now, and they're promoting their products. I'm like, okay, cool. But I watched the video. The first portion was me talking about my hair loss and my hair transplants. And then somewhere at the 30-second mark, it switched over to somebody else's hand holding uh, like a serum bottle. It wasn't my hand, it wasn't my voice, but it sounded like my voice, kind of. Um, and I realized, holy crap, like they just took my voice, recreated it using AI, and they're just typing out what they want Freddie to say to show how much this serum has helped my hair, how it made it grow back because a hair transplant failed on me. The hair transplant didn't fail.
yeah,
Like
exactly. I
it's
heard that. Yeah,
insane.
the hair transplant failed on you, and now suddenly this magical potion has
Right.
started to work.
Magical potion that I found. I was doing like some research. I found the bottle on like Alibaba or AliExpress. I'm like, this is insane. This is crazy stuff. The amount of work that people put into these kinds of things, I'll never understand because they're doing it to a lot of people. So watch out because who knows? Maybe your video, my video will pop up again. I don't know, but it's absurd.
Now, what advice can you give people to avoid being scammed by by these fake companies?
At the end of the day, do your research. You have to do your research. Even with like I I I pride myself on being a very honest person and never spitting like lies or anything. But even with me, like do your research, read up on what I'm saying because I'm just some stranger on the internet that you're talking to. So do your research, find out what science backed, what do doctors actually promote, and don't go off of some influencer that is just trying to sell you like, I don't know, dirt in a bottle. It's crazy.
I bet you it's probably just like finasteride, minoxidil.
Probably.
Yeah.
It's insane. You know what? And that company I've seen do to a handful of creators. There's an option in Facebook where you can go to their page and look at the ads that they're running. And so I've gone as far as to do that. And I've seen my video, one of my mutuals, another mutual, a fake doctor that they've created using Shutterstock images. It's truly mind-boggling to see somebody try so hard to rob people of their money. So do your research because it's not worth it. It's a waste of time
Absolutely.
and effort.
And I'd also say, like, look, there are some things, speak to a specialist in hair loss. I think that would be your best go to, right? Just find yourself a doctor that you trust who has certain qualifications in hair loss, either a dermatologist or a plastic surgeon, someone who only works in hair transplants or hair loss, or someone who's, board certified in that field, and get your advice from them, right? Maybe they won't know all of the latest and best treatments, but they will at least know a thing or two about these random treatments that probably don't work.
Yeah, yeah. It's a starting point too. When I first started finasteride, it was because I spoke to my dermatologist. I just went in. I was clearly losing my hair, and they told me, "All right, finasteride is your best option because you're losing hair at a rapid rate." Um, and then from there, I kind of just did my own research. I started taking finasteride and figured out, okay, minoxidil, this is a solid option. I'm stuck with that for a while until I moved on to Zion, and then I started using a lot of their treatments too.
So something I've been looking at recently, and maybe you should try it. It's a laser hat. One of those
Yes.
low-level laser hats.
Yeah.
I I've seen the studies, and it seems like it works almost as well as minoxidil. So, you
Yeah.
know, I'm sure they would be more than happy, or a good company would be more than happy to ship you one for free.
Yeah. Hey,
So
I love freeze
yeah,
for me. I'll take it. I love the sound of that. But you know what's so crazy is a lot of people don't know this, but before I started posting on TikTok, I was actually a medical assistant at a dermatologist's office. So I was assisting my doctor or the doctor I was working for with a lot of just treatments overall that were dermatology related. But I got to see a lot of results from red light therapy because we used to do it in office. Patients would come in, I would sit them down, like this like crazy machine with the biggest arm I've ever seen. I would wrap it around their head and they'd sit there for I think maybe 10 minutes. I can't remember. But we would take before and after photos. And over the course of a year, I remember this one woman, her hair grew back not to its full density that it used to be, but she gained a lot of hair just from using this red light therapy. And I thought to myself, damn, like I need this. Like I need,
yeah,
I need to sit here on my breaks and
yeah.
just wrap my head in this red light because it's insane what it can do.
So I love what you said because it didn't bring back her full head, but still it was a good adjunct, right? So it
Yes.
would be something good to add onto your treatment.
Mhm.
So like with everything with hair and other things, you need to approach it with multiple different approaches, right? So you
Yes.
got to target it at different places so that you can see the best possible results.
For sure. I think having realistic expectations is one of the most important things when it comes to hair loss. Even like regardless of what we're doing, even with my hair transplants, I don't expect to look like what I did 10 years ago. Does it come close visually? Yeah, I think this looks like the head of hair I had when I was 18. But density wise, I feel my hair. I know it's not even like three quarters as dense as it used to be, but I'm happy. Considering what I looked like before, this is like night and day.
Well, you look great. So honestly,
Thank you.
you have one of the best hair transplants that I've seen, really. So all kudos
Appreciate it.
to your team and to you as well. 'Cause you've done everything right. Then that's.
And
And
that's
then,
good.
and then you go and you share this important information with your following, which is what I want to talk about next, really. Because how did you decide, like, I've got this hair transplant, like you said, it was something that made you very, like, it was something that really hampered your confidence.
Yeah.
And now you decide, okay, I'm going to start posting about it.
You know what? It's the craziest thing. At the time, it was 2021. The world was still kind of on lockdown. We were slowly coming out of it. But I had so much free time and I didn't know, I was just bored. I had no idea what to do with myself. I was working remotely from home from 9 to 5. I was alone, couldn't see my friends, couldn't see my partner. I was only with my family within my house at that time. And I just started posting strictly for fun. But I thought to myself, what's interesting about me that I can actually speak to? And I'm like, okay, I can't cook, I can't dance. I like to work out, but I'm not going to record myself in the gym because I was freaked out over that. I'm like, okay, I just got a hair transplant. Like, that's pretty niche, right? Let me just talk to the camera and I'll just start talking about my hair transplant. Even though it was like such a big thing for me to even open up about, I thought to myself, I'm talking to strangers. At that time, I thought, like, nobody's going to see this. Who's going to see this? Now, all my family and friends follow me on TikTok, so they all see it now. Um, but it's really nice to see that I stuck with it because I didn't expect to. But I've gained a following of like I think maybe 70K followers, which I'm over the moon. It's small compared to many others, but I feel
It's not
like
small. Like 70K is a full massive stadium, right?
oh
Like
yeah, I'll take
that's
it.
how many people follow you,
Yeah.
and rightly so, because I mean, you're probably one of the biggest hair influencers in the world, actually.
Wow.
Um, really.
Can I get that in
And
writing?
of
That's
course,
amazing.
it's because it's such a niche, right? Like you own, well, I know you post about your day-to-day life, but most of it is about hair.
Most of it's you're
Yeah.
right.
It's
I'm glad that I stuck with it for all this time because whether my voice is big or small, I still feel like I have a voice that's helping others. Like at least once a day, I'm getting a message of people just asking, "Where'd you get it done? Can you help me? What are you taking? What should I do?" And then at least once a month, I get this like really warm message of, "Hey, I'm 19. I started balding when I was 17. Your videos helped me a lot." Whether they did something or not, some people just get the peace of mind of knowing Freddie went through this. Like there's tons of other people that are going through it and they genuinely just didn't like it. And it's okay for me not to like it. Whether you act on it or not, at least you know what? This insecurity that's out of your hands, you can be at peace knowing I can get it. Like some guys just feel like they have to get over it. But for me, I'm like, I'm gonna do something about it because I really don't like
absolutely.
it.
Look, not everyone can do something about it, but I really believe that that's a small subset of people, right? So, like I said earlier, everyone has their dose. If you do things properly, you take the right treatment, you catch it early. There's no reason why you shouldn't have hair.
The sooner you act the better. I always say the second you see a sign of hair loss and it concerns you, look into it. I don't tell people to take finasteride. Doctor, I don't feel like I'm in that place to tell people this is what you should do, but I share with people this is what I do that worked for me, and this is what I should have done when I first saw it. So take the information that is relevant to you, and then do your own research and act on it if you want to.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, one of the reasons we started a TikTok page and other social medias was because a lot of our patients were coming to us and we were consulting them, and they knew absolutely nothing about hair loss. And then I would have to go through like at least 10 minutes of the beginning of the consultation trying to convince them to take finasteride. Whereas these days, when I speak to patients, they've already seen all the videos, they've followed Freddie, and they know what to do. They know
Yeah,
what to do. They're already taking it. It saves me at least 10 minutes of convincing,
yeah,
and it just makes everything better, and their results in the future will be better as well.
for sure. I'm glad I could help, and I'm glad that there's other creators out there too that are doing the same thing. Same with you guys too. Like you guys are putting out such valuable information that I feel empowers a patient that is going into this blindly and doesn't know what to do, what to take, what questions to ask, what to look for. There's so much that you need to know going into this, and just giving them that information in advance allows them to make smarter decisions.
Absolutely, yeah. Do your research, guys. I think that's the biggest
Yeah.
takeaway points. Have you found anyone online that sort of like has reached out to you and has become your friend through this that you've been going through?
Yeah, it's crazy to think that I have a few mutuals. We don't talk often, but I feel the support from them, the way we like each other's videos and we'll both comment on each other's videos because we're all going through the same thing. I'm sure you know of Zeph because he's, I
Of
would
course,
say,
yeah.
the biggest hair loss guy on TikTok. But it was so nice to see he got his hair transplant and now he's also posting about it. And he's been kind enough to repost some of my videos, comment on my videos, give me the support because I'm a little bit of a smaller creator compared to him.
I
But
was wishing that I could do his.
right, like they have missed opportunity.
Yeah,
But it's nice to see that. I feel like all of these guys within this niche all follow each other. We all comment on each other's videos here and there. We like at least at the bare minimum, just throw them a like, and it's really nice to see. I feel like it's a small community, and it's one that we're all kind of on the same page. We're all in this.
absolutely.
We're not selling you BS. And there are guys out there doing that, but they're not within
Very, very
the
few.
circle. Yeah,
Yeah, very few actually. I mean, I'm very on top of this sort of niche, and I always go and look at other people and what they're telling. There aren't that many people who are super honest. So, that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on because, you're so honest about your content and how you went through everything and your emotions behind it. It's so nice to hear it from a patient's point of view instead of just like, always from the doctor's side, right? I've never had a hair transplant, although I've done hundreds of them. You know, I like to hear what patients go through. And it's also very important because, it helps you tailor their
exactly.
personalized sort of approach to their own hair transplant. I often tell patients like, okay, don't listen to me. Go follow Freddie and see what he's done. I swear.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That means a lot, actually. Yeah, I feel like sharing my experience from this point of view it's also very relatable because I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just here to tell you, hey, I got a hair loss. I got a hair transplant because I didn't like it. I didn't like the hair loss look on me. I didn't like being bald. Here's what I did. Here's what I'm using. Here's where I went. This is what it looked like month by month, and here I am now. Like I'm still going through this process of since the second hair transplant. I'm still sharing about it, but a lot of people seem very engaged to know that okay, there's this guy that literally just did this 9 months ago, and I'm about to do it next month. So let me watch his videos. The saddest part is when they get their hair back and then they stop watching. I'm like, guys, come on,
Uh,
all this support for all this time, but there's always new people engaging, and then it's like a revolving
Don't
door,
worry,
as you said.
everyone continues to bald over
Yeah.
time. Even if you're on finasteride, you're still going to bald, albeit it will be a lot slower,
Yeah,
but you're still going to continue to bald. So many, many of those people will need their second transplant in about 5 to 10 years' time.
they'll come back to
They're going to come
me.
back. So yeah, what is your next sort of step in the content creating? Do you have any plans for the future? You're going to stick to this? I hope you do.
Yes, so still staying strong in the hair loss niche that I found myself in. I do find I kind of want to venture out a little bit more, maybe expand what I post and diversify the kind of content. So maybe self-care, self-grooming, something along those lines of just like self-improvement overall, just to make yourself feel like your best self possible. But right now, sticking with the hair.
Well, I see you're doing all of those things, right? Obviously you go to the gym and
Yes, yes, yeah.
yeah.
I have to work up that courage to start recording myself in the gym. I've tried it. I'm like, these guys do it because I couldn't. I just didn't feel comfortable doing it.
Listen, Freddie, stick to hair. You're a
Yeah,
hair model anyway, so
yeah. This is a great side job. I love it, truly.
yeah. I think takeaway sort of from this whole podcast would be listen to people who have gone through it, right? And those who are honest about it. So, go to forums, just like Freddie did at the beginning. He went to Facebook on a forum, he read a whole bunch of patient reviews, and then he decided how to find his hair transplant clinic.
Sure.
He listened to his doctors, right? So they told him to go on finasteride, he did that. and he saw wonderful results from that too. And then also he did a ton of research, right, just to find the right clinic for him. Obviously, you can do a ton of research and still end up in the wrong hands. I'd probably say, be careful of many clinics. Some of the more popular ones, the ones with millions of followers. Followers can be bought, and
For
have a
sure.
look at their hairlines. Like Freddie said at the beginning, you
Yes.
don't want people to know that you've had a hair transplant. Of course, it's never going to be as natural as when you were 16 years old, but at the very least, most people shouldn't be able to tell that you've had anything done.
Yeah. Or it can come pretty close, honestly. The ones that stick out the most are the ones where I say, not the best hair transplant because I can tell you got it done. I think it's important to maintain realistic expectations too, and not to expect that you're going to look how you did when you were in your teens. Maybe you'll come close. Maybe you'll just look like a younger version of yourself at this point in time. And I still think that's a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I always tell patients like that part of my job is really to limit expectations. So, you'll come in, a lot of patients want a full head of hair. Well, unfortunately, you're shiny bald on top, and we're going to
Yeah.
have to do at least 2 sessions to give you a decent amount of hair. Um, it's a lot easier to recreate a hairline if there's still a remnant of the old hairline, right? So you can use those original single hairs that they had before to sort of hide the hair transplant. When you're recreating a full head of hair, right, if they have nothing left, obviously it's never going to look as natural, but still, there's a lot of things you can do to make it natural. And Freddie talks about this a lot in his own on his channel, right? Single hair follicles, very, very important. We even go
Yes.
as far as finding the thinnest single hair follicles to put in the front because some single hairs are thicker than others, and you might have a very thick single hair sticking out, which might kind of look like doll's hair.
Yeah.
So you need to do all these things to get the best possible results.
Exactly. Single hair follicles, thin ones, ideally, micro irregularities, and straying away from the perfectly straight hairlines that I see at least once a day. I was also, as a patient that went into things not knowing much, I was enamored by it. Like I was amazed by these hairlines, considering what they looked like before, until I really started to look. I'm like, hold on, these guys look like Lego characters. Like it looks like it's not growing out of their scalps as it naturally would. So that's where I really realized, you know what, something natural is something that looks a little bit more feathered. You can see through the hairs just a little bit, where you can see that growth of those single hair follicles coming through. That's what really helps give a natural appearance. And also what you said about using your own natural hair if you had anything, that's why I find it so important to stabilize your hair loss if you can, and if you're willing to, because a lot of this up here is my own natural hair. It's my native hair. I'd say the majority is probably transplanted, but the fact that I still have those tiny little baby hairs allowed me to have something that looks like how it did 10 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned those Lego man hair transplants. I always have to tell people like it's natural. As you get older, you're going to have temporal recessions, right? When I
Hmm.
was 16, I had a rounded hairline, which is actually juvenile, right? So
Hmm.
it's natural to have a little bit of recessions as you age. We don't want to give you a 16-year-old hairline because when you age, it's not going to suit you,
Yeah.
right? So you don't want to have a 20-year-old hairline when you're 40. So,
Exactly.
and be conservative because that's going to save you follicles for the future.
Be conservative is key. That once that hair is gone, that hair is gone. There's no regenerating hair, at least not for right now. So stay
And we
conservative.
we don't want to change your race, right? Like no
Yes.
one, very few people have a straight hairline like this, right?
Hmm.
We need something that's going to suit your face. So
Hmm.
not everyone can have this, you know, ridiculous straight
Yeah.
hairline.
Yeah. Panoramic foreheads, as I call it. You
Run
don't want
away,
it. Run
run
away.
away from anyone who's going to give you one of these.
Yeah. Then it's like it just wraps around a little. No. Go natural. Stay conservative. Embrace a mature hairline if you're in that place where you need to.
I think maybe we should end on this because I'm 100% sure you coined the term panoramic forehead. So, yeah,
I
can
should
you,
trademark that.
yeah, you should.
Yeah.
Because I started using it after that.
Oh my
So
goodness. I'm
what
gonna
is a
have to do
panoramic
something.
forehead?
Panoramic forehead. I don't even know how it came to me, but it is what I call when somebody lowers their hairline a little drastically, say. So their hairline receded, their temples also receded, but they got a hair transplant where they only lowered the hairline, which I see is the case a lot of times. And I understand that it's a little bit trickier here to do a hair transplant in your temples. But when you have a hairline that is placed so low compared to the lateral placement of your temples, you're left with something that I call panoramic forehead. It's 360. It goes all the way around and it frames your face in the most unnatural way. Some people don't notice it, but the second I call it out, like I've gotten a lot of people comment on my video. Now I see it. Like I can't unsee it. Or I knew something looked weird. I just didn't know what it was, and you were spot on. So panoramic foreheads, leave it in 2024. We don't want them there.
So yeah, you mentioned it is very difficult to actually recreate the temporal peaks because I often shy away from it if I can because it'll never be as natural as your
Mhm.
old temporal peaks, right?
Right.
Because they have to be very soft single hairs. The hairs on the corners here are much softer and thinner than the hairs that you extract from the back. But if you need it, right, then we're going to have to do it for you. And it has to only be single hair follicles. So, I've seen terrible bushy temporal peaks, which look, four hair, five hairs in the temporal peaks, and they stick out like this, and patients
Yes,
hate it. And then they don't get something called hair freedom, right? You want hair freedom. You want to be able to do whatever you want with your hair, wake up in the morning and just go. You don't want to like have to always be sort of concerned about what your hair looks like.
for sure.
Yeah.
You want
So,
something easy.
yeah, that's why we shy away from doing temporal peaks if possible. But if you got to do it, I mean, we
Yeah.
don't want panoramic foreheads.
No panoramic forehead. I'm glad you shared that information. Stay conservative. At the end of the day, you don't need to lower it. If it's back here, it's probably not a good idea to lower it back to where it used to be. But stay modest. Modest isn't bad. Still looks better than it looking back here. But whatever. That's my own opinion.
Is there anything you want to add here? Anything you feel like we've left out?
I don't think so. I think we covered all our bases. Truly, I think we talked about everything. I do want to say I'm very happy to see you guys have such a large social media presence now compared to when we first connected back in I think it was in 2022 is when we first spoke, which is crazy to that's crazy to think that that much time has passed by. But
Well,
it's nice to see.
I was loving your content from the start.
Oh, thank you. Don't look at those videos because I watch them sometimes. I'm like, oh my goodness. Right? I think one thing that I love about TikTok is it helped me find my voice. So now I know how to speak a little bit more confidently and how to get my words across and my thoughts across. But I've seen those videos. I'm like, oh my, I'm shocked you guys even reached out to me to talk. They were they were horrible compared
Well,
to
you were
what I
being
was.
honest, like
Yeah,
I could just tell that you were a good guy and you didn't care about sponsors or something like that. You just wanted to help people, which is what we wanted. We wanted to just connect with someone who was a lovely person. So,
appreciate it.
which
And
you
that's
are.
still the case too. I'm happy to stay honest and continue doing what I'm doing.
Awesome, Freddie. Well, thank you so much for this. It's been a pleasure as always, and I hope we can get you back on at some point.
Appreciate it. It was a pleasure talking. And yeah, keep killing it.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. If you like this kind of content, please like, subscribe, and share these videos. It really helps us a lot. We look forward to bringing you more interesting guests.